6%. No more 6%. You know, if you've been listening to the news at all, since last Friday, the National Association of Realtors said, we give up, but they didn't really give up. The Department of Justice has been after us, the Realtor community, about the way we do commissions and the way we have, quote, the sellers paying the listing agent and the selling agent who's representing the buyer. And there's been a whole lot of conversation going on. Actually, this started a few years ago. So here's the good news. In California, on our contract with our listing, with our sellers, in really bold print, dark black, bold print, it says commission is negotiable. Now, some people charge 6%, some people charge 5%, some people charge 4%. I've seen people maybe charge less than that. It depends on the situation, the relationship with the seller and the listing agent, and what they're willing to do. A few years ago, we were told that we had to, as in the realtor community, create something called clear cooperation, which means that we stipulate through the multiple listing service how much we're willing to, quote, share with the agent bringing in the buyer. Well, nobody wants to see it anymore. So what's going to be happening out of this out of this potential ruling is, one, we will not know, if I look at a listing, what the multiple listing, what the seller's office commission is going to be. Not going to be on our multiple listing any longer. And number two, we are going to have any agent representing a buyer will have a contract with the buyer. And on the contract with the buyer, it's going to stipulate, it's going to stipulate how much of a commission the buyer is going to be paying their buyer's agent. Now, those are two things. The other thing to remember is none of this is in fact yet. We're talking about changes by the mid-July because they're thinking by mid-July this should all be done. But in a lot of cases, we're sort of acting as if. So we're going to move forward in this vein. So here's some of the things we need to remember. When I have a conversation with my seller, I'm going to suggest or remind them that if they want to be able to share their, hopefully get people in from all walks of life, not just cash buyers, not just 25% down buyers, but buyers who may have as little as 3.5% down. Then they may choose through their agent, discuss with their agent, to offer the agent representing the buyer a commission. Okay? So it's not like the 6% is going away. It's not going to be visible anymore. It's not going to be part of the public conversation. It's going to be a conversation between the two agents and the seller. So the seller can pay the buyer's commission, the buyer can pay the buyer's commission, the listing agent can still pay the buyer's agent commission, sorry. Also, what can happen is there could be a line item. Right now, there's a line item on the contract when the buyer makes an offer that looks for seller concessions. Repair. It's usually having to do with a dollar amount towards repairs. But what we may be seeing is a separate line item talking about, without saying seller commission, buyer's agent commission, actually allowing that. Hi, Nikki. So you can I wonder what you think about this, Nikki. Feel free to make a comment down below about all this stuff about the 6% commission. Someone said, a realtor out in Florida was saying she's going to start doing a little poll to see what people really understand. Anyway, so there's going to be a comment line where actually it'll be separate from the concessions for the seller to pay for repairs, which is help with closing costs, and there'll be maybe another line item having to do with what the buyer would like the seller to do as far as their agent and commission. Because no offense, guys, we don't work for free. And I have never told a buyer that they don't pay commission. Because in reality, how does the sale work? Buyer and seller come to an agreement on price. The price, in order to get to that price, it's either all cash or it's cash plus a loan. Okay? Who gets the cash and the loan is the buyer. The buyer brings the money to the escrow or to closing table, and then that money is then dispersed through escrow for all kinds of fees that the seller is paying for. Their escrow fees, their title fees, their property taxes, prorated property taxes, paying off their loan, any additional liens, any repairs that they did make, and then they're also paying their commission. Well, in the past, of course, as we've seen, the listing agent has shared the commission with the agent bringing in the buyer. So now it's still going to be paid, that even if the buyer brings in money, it's still going to be paid that way. But it's not going to be paid with the same words. So another agent in my office was saying yesterday that she was talking to some agents over during an open house, and they all said, it's no big deal. This whole change is not a big deal. It's going to be a little different paperwork, a little bit different conversation with both the seller and the buyer to explain this. But it's not as dramatic as the news is making it sound. Yes, it's different. I do understand that across the nation, a lot of agents have never had that kind of conversation. So, they never had a conversation about commission to a buyer, only to a seller, or maybe not even to the seller. I don't know. I wasn't there. So, when I'm sitting, and the other thing is that what we call a buyer-broker agreement, before we go out to look at property, we will come to an agreement as to how I will get paid. When you go in to see a doctor and you know there's going to be surgery, you're going to check with the billing department to find out what it's going to cost and decide if you can move forward with the surgery. You see your attorney, the same thing. You go get your car repaired. It's the same thing. You're going to get a cost of what is going to go on. Hi, Mark. How's Florida? Hi, Claudine. Thanks for joining. Conversation about the 6% commission. And if you have any comments about the 6% commission, please make comments down below. So I'd love to hear what the public's hearing and how the public's interpreting. I saw a poll the other day which talked about what buyers felt that their agent was worth, and I saw some, like 37% of the buyers said that they deserve 20%, which is higher than I'm getting, but which is very commendable, because they see the value. They're seeing the value in what we do. It's always good to, quote, get a second opinion. I am the second opinion when you walk into a house. I'm the opinion to give you an idea of what's going on in the neighborhood. I'm the opinion of how pricing is going on in the neighborhood, and conversations with the lenders so that you know that you're going to get a decent loan and what your payment's going to look like. So, and there's a whole slew of other things that I do, and I've been doing this for over 40 years. So, and there's a lot of buyers I've worked with in that time. So anyway, let me get back to, so the two things that are going to change is one, hi Brian, you're no longer going to see, we are not going to see a line item that says SOC, which was selling office commission, on the multiple listing. And you're not going to see it at any, should not be seeing it at any public site either. And number two, we're going to have a contract with the buyer prior to taking them out to show property. If you're buying FHA or VA, or coming in with something that's, 3.5%, 5%, 10% down, you probably don't have the extra funds in order to pay a commission. That could be negotiated. So it's a whole level of negotiation between buyer and their agent, buyer and the seller. The listing agent and the buyer's agent have a conversation to see what the seller's willing to do. It's going to just be new words and new conversations. It's been really interesting. In over 40 years, we've had a lot of laws change. And every time a law changes, we're really concerned that we're going to get sued. Don't sue. We've already been sued. They're now negotiating to figure out how much we're all going to have to participate in these lawsuits. But when you hired a realtor to list your property here in California, as I mentioned earlier, there was a line item that says commission is negotiable, and you communicate, and you and the listing agent that you were hiring communicated how much of a commission you were willing to pay. You had that in writing. If you take written and a signature to an attorney, to a judge rather, they usually, I understand, would side with whatever the contract said. So that's another thing. These are contracts between listing agent and listing and seller, or buyer's agent and broker, and buyers and the buyer. So if you have any other questions about this, please feel free to give me a call, send me an email, make a note down below. It's a whole new discussion, and it's still going on because every day there's a new article about it. We're constantly seeing new videos from the California Association of Realtors. National Association is going to come up with some new protocol, but the California Association is going to come up with protocol for us, and all of our multiple listing services are going to come up with different forms that we'll have an opportunity to learn how to fill out. So anyway, if anyone has any questions, Carol Gillis, Fredericks Realty, 310-864-9738. It is a wild Wednesday. Bye.